I always thought the weirdest thing that would ever happen at a family dinner was the year Uncle Peter tried to deep fry a turkey and set his eyebrows on fire. That was our benchmark for chaos. Funny, harmless, soaked in wine and laughter. We were that kind of family. Loud, dramatic, but ultimately close. So when I sat down at the table that night, I wasn't bracing for anything dark or dangerous. I was in a silk blouse, barefoot in my parents' kitchen, sipping a glass of Cabernet my dad poured for me himself. I smiled at him. I trusted him. I remember the way the room smelled, lemon and rosemary from the roast chicken, fresh bread still warm on the cutting board, the faint trail of my mother's perfume floating in from the hallway. It was one of those rare nights when everything felt okay. No one was fighting. No tension humming under the surface. Just clinking silverware, wine glasses, the soft scrape of chairs. Safe. Familiar. Home. Until my second glass. I didn't even drink it all. I took a few sips, laughing at something my brother said, and then suddenly, it was like my body stopped cooperating. My arms felt heavy. My head swam. It wasn't a buzz, it was a pull, like being yanked underwater mid-sentence. My vision blurred around the edges. I blinked, tried to focus on my dad's face across the table. He was smiling. Calm. Too calm. The kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Are you okay, honey?" my mom asked, cutting into her chicken. I opened my mouth, but the words got stuck. Something was wrong. I wasn't drunk. I knew what drunk felt like. This was different. This was wrong. I felt like a passenger in my own body, like someone had cracked open my brain and flipped a switch. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't food poisoning, and it wasn't exhaustion. Something was in my system. I tried to stand up. My knees buckled. I caught the edge of the table and knocked over a glass. My dad rushed over, too quickly, and steadied me. "It's okay, Claire. You're just tired. Let's get you upstairs." I tried to protest. I tried to speak. But my tongue felt thick, my mouth dry. My eyes met my mom's across the table, but she looked more confused than alarmed. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. My dad half carried, half dragged me up the stairs. My head was spinning. I remember him whispering something. "You just need rest, baby. You'll feel better in the morning." But his tone was off, detached, mechanical, like he was reciting a script. Then darkness. I don't remember falling asleep. I remember dropping into unconsciousness like a stone into a well. No dreams. No drifting. Just nothing. When I woke up, it was still dark. My mouth was dry. My arms were numb. And the first thing I saw when I turned my head was my father, sitting in the chair next to my bed, smiling, like nothing had happened. Looking back, I realize now how easy it is to confuse love with loyalty, especially when you're raised in a house where appearances mattered more than honesty. To the outside world, we were the kind of family people envied. My dad was the charismatic one, well-spoken, charming, the kind of man who made strangers feel like lifelong friends after 5 minutes. He wore tailored suits even on weekends, kissed my mom on the cheek every morning, and always had a story ready for dinner parties. You'd never guess how tightly he controlled the narrative. My mother, on the other hand, was soft. Not weak, just gentle in a way that made people open up to her. She hummed while she cleaned, color-coded her spice rack, and made the best lemon tart in the neighborhood. She loved deeply, maybe too much, especially when it came to my father. She thought he hung the moon. Growing up, I saw them as the blueprint of what a relationship should be. They didn't fight in front of us. They went on date nights. Every year on their anniversary, my dad would write her a letter instead of buying a card. She kept them all, tied together with a ribbon in her nightstand drawer. "This is what forever looks like," she told me once, holding them like they were sacred. And for the longest time, I believed her. But there were cracks, if you knew where to look. Little things. Moments I dismissed because I didn't want to see what they really were. Like how my dad always ordered my mom's meals for her at restaurants. Or how he'd talk over her at dinner, correcting her stories with a smile that wasn't really a smile. Or how she stopped wearing the color red after he made one offhand comment about it being too loud for a woman her age. Even with me, there were lines I was never supposed to cross. Questions I wasn't supposed to ask. When I came home from uni with a shaved head during my feminist phase, he laughed, really laughed, and called it my ugly rebellion. I laughed too, pretending it didn't sting. That's how it worked. Everything was a joke until it wasn't. Everything was love until it came with strings. But we kept the illusion alive. We smiled in Christmas photos. We hosted perfect brunches. My dad would toast to family first, and we'd all raise our glasses, even though somewhere deep in my gut, something had started to feel off. Not broken. Not yet. Just scripted. It wasn't until years later that I realized I'd been raised inside a performance. A carefully rehearsed production, where my father directed every scene, and we were just playing our parts. My mom, the loyal wife. Me, the doting daughter. And him, the man everyone admired but no one really knew. There was one night, about a year before the dinner, when I caught him on the back patio, pacing with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and clipped. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, just a few words. She's getting suspicious, and no, she won't do anything. When I stepped outside, he turned around like nothing had happened and asked me if I wanted to grill steaks. Just like that. Switch flipped. Smile on. And I did what I'd always done. I said yes. I pretended I hadn't heard. Because that's what you do in a perfect family. You pretend. Until you can't anymore. It was supposed to be a simple dinner, just the four of us. My parents, my brother James, and me. No extended family, no special occasion. Just a midweek, let's all be together kind of night. And even that felt suspicious in hindsight. My dad never did anything without a reason, and the fact that he'd cleared his schedule and actually cooked, that should have been my first clue. But I was tired, I was trying to be present, and honestly, I missed when things felt normal. He opened a bottle of wine as soon as I walked in. Red, smooth, expensive, one of the ones he kept in the cabinet labeled for special guests. I remember raising an eyebrow and teasing him. Am I the special guest tonight? He laughed. You're always special, Claire. He poured my glass himself. I remember that detail so vividly now, how carefully he filled it, how he made a point to top it off just a little more than everyone else's. His eyes locked on mine as he handed it to me. A smile. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. At the time, I told myself I was imagining things. The table was already set. My mother had done her usual spread, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, asparagus with lemon. It smelled like every holiday dinner I'd ever loved. She was glowing, pleased that we were all together. She had no idea what was coming, and for a little while I didn't either. We sat, we passed dishes, we joked about James' terrible Tinder dates. My dad told a story about an old college friend, one I'd heard before, but he always added little dramatic flourishes like he was telling it for the first time. I sipped my wine slowly, savoring it. I didn't even finish the first glass. It started gradually. My arms felt heavy, like I'd been swimming for hours. My head swam, but I hadn't had enough wine for that. My lips tingled. The sound of James laughing across the table stretched and blurred, like a song playing on the wrong speed. I blinked hard, shook my head, but the world tilted just slightly off-center. And then I looked at my dad. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't talking. He was watching me. That's when I knew. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't concerned. He was waiting. I tried to speak, but my voice caught. My mom turned to me, concerned. Claire, you okay? I wanted to say no. Something's wrong. Something seriously wrong. But I couldn't. My mouth was dry, my tongue thick. I stood, or tried to, but my knees didn't listen. The room tilted again. My hand knocked over my glass. It shattered on the floor, and for a moment, everything froze. Then my father was at my side. Quick! Too quick! Whoa, it's okay. She's had a long day, he said, already wrapping his arm around my back. She's just tired. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you upstairs. I looked at my mum. She stood up, halfway between concerned and confused, but she didn't move fast enough. She didn't see what I saw. Or maybe she didn't want to. I tried to pull away. I wanted to scream, to fight, but my body wouldn't obey. I felt like a rag doll being walked across a stage. Everything around me felt unreal, like I'd stepped into a dream I couldn't wake up from. My father guided me up the stairs with a hand that felt too firm, too practiced. He spoke softly, like he was comforting me, but his tone was flat, cold, as if he were reading a bedtime story he told 1,000 times before. We reached the top of the stairs. My vision was tunneling. I remember the hallway lights were too bright, and my body felt like it was made of wet sand. I mumbled something. I don't even know what. His response, just a gentle shoo. I don't remember getting into bed. I don't remember the blanket being pulled over me. But I remember the last thing I saw before everything went black. His face, close to mine, still smiling. That smile wasn't my father's. It was someone else's entirely. When I woke up the next morning, everything was wrong. Not in the dramatic, cinematic way I would have expected. There was no thunder, no shattered mirror, no dramatic gasp. Just stillness. My head felt like it had been packed with cotton. My mouth was dry. My limbs ached. And worst of all, I couldn't remember anything after I hit the top of the stairs. My mom was downstairs humming to herself, the way she always did when she was cleaning up after breakfast. I could hear the plates clinking in the sink, the kettle hissing. Everything was normal. Too normal. My dad, gone to work already. Of course. It would have been so easy to believe I just overdid it. That I was exhausted or had a weird reaction to the wine. That maybe my body just short-circuited. That's what he wanted, I realized later. That pause, that window the next morning, he counted on that. Because if I doubted myself, even for a second, the trail would go cold. He'd win. But I didn't doubt it. Because I know my body. And that wasn't alcohol. So I started digging. The first thing I did was call the clinic on my way to work. I told them I thought I might have been drugged and asked if I could get a blood test. I said it casually, like I was worried about a spiked drink at a bar, left out the whole, my own father poured it part. They told me I had a 24-hour window to detect anything clearly. I drove there that afternoon, hands shaking the entire way. The nurse barely looked up when she took my sample. I remember watching the vial fill with my blood and thinking, if I'm wrong, I'm paranoid. But if I'm right, I'm in danger. They called me 2 days later. Trace amounts of a sedative, something not typically found in wine. Not strong enough to knock me out immediately, but definitely enough to impair. They asked if I wanted to speak to the police. I didn't answer right away. Because how do you say out loud, I think my father drugged me? Instead, I started looking for proof. Not for the cops, not even for my mom, for me. I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. I started small. I checked the wine cabinet. My dad kept it organized like a museum exhibit. Every bottle had a label facing forward. Everything was in pairs, 2 of each. Except the one he poured for me. That one. The match was missing. Like it had been used, but not stored. Or hidden. I started going through the trash. Pathetic, I know, but something in me had cracked open, and I couldn't stop. I found the cork. It wasn't a wine we usually drank. It was something imported, a brand I didn't recognize. And it didn't match any of the labels still in the cabinet. Then I checked the laundry room. He had a locked cabinet above the dryer where he kept random stuff, tools, old cords, documents. He always made a big deal about how nosy kids shouldn't mess with his things. I never had. Until now. I found the spare key taped under the sink. I don't know if he forgot it was there, or just assumed no one would ever look. Inside the cabinet was a pharmacy bag, not from our usual store. Inside it, a bottle of pills, half full. No prescription label. Just a manufacturer name and a warning about drowsiness. I took photos. Every angle. Every detail. My hands were trembling, so badly I almost dropped my phone. Then, just to be sure, I called a friend of mine from university, Kira. She studied pharmacology. I sent her the pill name and waited for what felt like hours. When she finally texted me back, it was just one sentence. Claire, that's not sold over the counter. That's controlled. Where the hell did you get that? I lied. Said I found it in someone's drawer at work. That night I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing his voice over and over again. You're just tired, sweetheart. Tired. I knew I needed to confront him. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wanted more. I needed to understand why he did it. The next day, I accidentally left my laptop open on the kitchen table with a tab pulled up on sedative side effects. I wanted to see if he'd react. He didn't. Cool as ever. That night, he brought home dessert. My favorite. Lemon tart. The same one my mom makes. He set it on the counter and smiled. Saw this and thought of you. I smiled back, but I didn't touch it, because now I knew. He wasn't trying to hurt me physically. He was trying to silence me. And that meant I knew something he couldn't afford for me to remember. The thing about truth is, you never find it all at once. It doesn't fall into your lap like some grand confession. It leaks. Slowly. Through cracks you didn't know were there. A suspicious look. A half-deleted text. A receipt that doesn't add up. And once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. That's how it was with my father. After I found the pills, after Kira confirmed they weren't anything an average person should have, something inside me shifted. I stopped thinking like a daughter. I started thinking like a witness. I watched him. Closely. Every movement. Every phone call he took in the garage. Every time he locked his office when he never used to. And I wrote it all down. Because if I didn't have proof, then I was just the unstable daughter with a wild imagination. I started snooping through his drawers when he left the house. I know how that sounds. But when you think your father drugged you and smiled while doing it, your definition of privacy changes. It wasn't long before I found something, his laptop password written on a sticky note and tucked behind a filing cabinet. One of those, I'll forget it otherwise, moments that people like him, people who think they're invincible, always assume no one will find. Once I was in, it didn't take long. He had a folder buried in the document section. Password protected. But here's the thing. He used variations of our birthdays for everything. And when I typed in my mom's birthday, the folder opened. Inside were emails. Dozens. No subject lines, just vague one-liners. All addressed to the same person. Empty, the content made my stomach drop. She's asking too many questions. We need to keep her quiet until this closes. Worst case, I'll handle it the same way as before. The same way as before. I opened a PDF file titled Agreement. It looked like a legal settlement, full of jargon, buried clauses. But it was addressed to a woman I didn't recognize. A name that meant nothing to me, until I saw the closing line. This concludes your claim regarding the incident with Claire. No further action may be taken once payment is received. I froze. Claim. Incident. I had no memory of any incident. Nothing came to mind. But my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I clicked through the files. Another email. This one was more explicit. We should have handled her sooner. She doesn't remember, but if she starts putting things together, it's all over. That's when it hit me. He hadn't drugged me to hurt me. He drugged me because I was remembering something I wasn't supposed to. Something from the past. Something he buried, and paid someone else to bury too. I didn't know the details yet, but I knew enough. Enough to know my father had done something. To someone. To me, maybe. And I was getting too close. The night of the dinner wasn't a moment of panic. It was calculated. Planned. He wanted me compliant. Quiet. Gone from the conversation. Maybe even institutionalized if he could spin it right. And here's the worst part. My mom didn't know. None of it. I found emails from her account, also written by him. Drafts he had saved, likely meant to look like she had agreed to all of this. Gaslighting on a level I didn't know was possible. Covering his tracks in case I ever told her the truth. Because he knew, that if she believed me he was finished. And that's when I realized the real reason he spiked my drink. It wasn't about keeping a secret. It was about silencing a witness. Me. And the more I read, the clearer it became. I was never supposed to wake up with my memory intact. That night wasn't an accident. It was a warning. A quiet message from a man who'd spent his whole life controlling the narrative. Stay in line, or I'll take everything from you. And for a moment, I almost did. Almost. They say when you uncover a terrible truth, the hard part is accepting it. That's a lie. The hard part is deciding what to do with it. I sat with the evidence for 3 days. Emails, screenshots, the pharmacy receipt, the sedatives hidden in that cabinet. All of it printed, highlighted, organized, like I was building a case file. Because in my head, that's what it had become. A case. A crime. My life reduced to folders and timelines and unanswered questions. But every time I thought about telling my mother, I couldn't breathe. She had no idea. She was still baking lemon tart and calling him, your father, like he hadn't tried to erase a piece of me. She was still defending him when I flinched at his voice. Still speaking in that soft, hopeless way when he was late for dinner. He's just been stressed lately. You know how he gets. And I hated how much I understood her. Because to admit who he really was, that would mean she'd wasted her whole life loving a lie. So I became two people. Around her I smiled. I nodded. I played the role of the recovering daughter who had maybe had a weird reaction to wine. Maybe stress. Maybe hormones. I'm just tired, I told her one morning while she made toast. The same words he used. But when I was alone, I screamed into pillows. I ripped pages out of notebooks. I sat in my car for hours outside a police station and couldn't make myself walk through the door. Because there's no playbook for this kind of betrayal. No guidebook for when the villain is someone who used to kiss your scraped knees and pack your school lunches. And then came the day I couldn't fake it anymore. I walked into the kitchen and found my mom crying. Silently. Just standing there by the sink, hands gripping the counter, shoulders shaking. Not sobbing. Not wailing. Just breaking. She didn't see me at first. I stood there frozen, watching her from the doorway, heart hammering in my chest. I wanted to run. I wanted to ask her what happened. I wanted to pretend I didn't already know. When she finally turned around, she wiped her face and smiled like nothing had happened. He left his phone at home, she said. And I saw a message. From someone named MT. My heart dropped. I knew that name. I knew exactly what she had seen. And for a moment I thought maybe this was it. Maybe I wouldn't have to be the one to destroy her. Maybe she would look at me and say, "Claire, I think something's wrong." And I could finally say, "I know." But she didn't. She just shook her head and said, "He said it was business. Business. Business." That was the moment I knew she wasn't ready. And I had a choice. Stay silent and let her live in the lie a little longer. Let her preserve her marriage, her memories, her sense of stability. Let her believe in the man she fell in love with, even if it meant abandoning the truth. Or I could tell her everything. I could burn the house down. I went to my room and stared at the manila envelope on my desk. Inside, all the evidence. The emails. The receipts. The clinic report. Proof, beyond doubt, that her husband, the man she slept next to every night, had drugged her daughter, lied to her face, and covered up something so dark. Even now I still don't have the full picture. And then I thought about what it would do to her. I thought about the way her hands tremble when she's overwhelmed. The way she still talks about their wedding like it was yesterday. The way she once told me, when I was 16 and heartbroken, "When you find real love, it steadies you." What would it mean to her if that love was never real? What would it mean to me if I kept protecting her from the truth, and in doing so, kept protecting him? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I left the envelope on the kitchen table. I didn't say a word. I just walked out. By noon, I had 20 missed calls, 5 voicemails, one from my mom that was nothing but silence, and a single whisper before the line cut off. "Claire." That was it. Just my name. That night, she didn't come home. And neither did he. I don't remember the first few days after I left that envelope. Everything is a blur, just fragments of sound, faces, moments where the world didn't quite feel like it was real. My mind was caught somewhere between panic and numbness, a state where you know you're living, but you're not really living. It's like walking through a house that's been torn apart but not yet fully collapsed. You know it's all going to come down, but you're too stunned to leave. I spend hours pacing my apartment, not knowing where to go or who to talk to. I didn't call my friends. I didn't call anyone. I couldn't. What would I say? "Hey, my dad drugged me, and my mom is in denial, so I'm totally fine, how are you?" My phone never stopped ringing. My mom's messages were frantic at first, then confused. She begged me to come home. "Come back, Claire. Let's talk." There was something in her voice, something desperate, but also fragile, like a woman trying to hold on to the last threads of her reality. And my dad? I didn't hear from him. I didn't need to. I knew he was orchestrating his narrative behind the scenes, smoothing things over, trying to explain the way he had failed me, maybe twisted into something he could control. The worst part, I could practically hear him saying it. The rehearsed lines, the guilt tripping. He was a master at turning the tables, and I had no doubt he was already trying to twist my mother's perception of me. But I had no intention of giving him the opportunity. For a long time, I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I didn't know if I had been too harsh, if I'd been too quick to pull the trigger. There were moments when I wished I had just walked into that living room, screamed at my dad, and let the pieces fall as they may. But I couldn't. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about me. The truth is, what happened in that kitchen, when I left the envelope on the table, when I turned and walked out, changed something inside me. And it wasn't just about the lies or the betrayal. It was about the weight of the decision I had made. I had chosen the truth. I had chosen myself. But in doing so, I had condemned everything I thought I knew about family. Days turned into weeks. I didn't go back to my old life. I didn't try to fix it. There was no getting back to normal after something like this. The foundation of everything I believed and had cracked beyond repair. I could feel my mother's absence when I walked through the house. How quiet it was without her there. How every corner seemed to echo with questions I didn't know how to answer. I could almost hear her walking through the door, calling my name, asking if I'd like a cup of tea. But she didn't, and I didn't know what to do with that. I spent nights crying in my car. I spent weekends alone. Every time I heard a knock at the door, my heart would leap into my throat, wondering if it was her, coming to ask for answers that I didn't know how to give. Then one day I saw her. It was on a Wednesday. The sun was just beginning to set, casting a warm light over everything. I was walking to my car when I saw her standing outside my apartment building, as if she had been there for hours, waiting for me to come out. She looked so small. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I stood there, staring at her, while my insides twisted into knots. All the anger I'd felt, all the pain from what she had been willing to ignore, felt so insignificant compared to the ache in her eyes. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the years of silence between us, the walls we'd built, the way our relationship had shifted without either of us realizing. She looked at me for a long time, then said softly, "I don't know where to start." Neither did I. We sat down on the curb, neither of us speaking at first. I wanted to shout at her, to demand she tell me why she didn't see it sooner. But I also wanted her to just hold me, to tell me everything was going to be okay, even though I knew it couldn't be. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "I don't know who he is anymore, Claire. I don't know what's real. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to see it." Her voice was thick with unshed tears, but there was no bitterness, no accusation, just a quiet sorrow that made me ache even more. I didn't know how to respond. There were so many things I wanted to say, so many things I needed her to know. But instead, I reached over and held her hand, like I used to when I was a little girl. She squeezed my fingers, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't all fixed in that moment. It wouldn't be, but it was a beginning. A fragile, tentative beginning. We didn't talk about my dad that day. Not directly, anyway. She didn't ask me for every detail of what I had discovered. She didn't force me to recount all of the terrible things he had done. But I could feel that she was trying to rebuild, slowly, painfully in her own way. And so was I. There was no way to undo the past. No way to go back to the way things were. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let the weight of what I had learned break me. I wasn't going to bury the truth just because it was inconvenient. I wasn't going to pretend to be okay when I wasn't. For the first time in a long time, I started thinking about what it would be like to move forward. I had to rebuild. From the ground up. From the ruins. But it was my foundation now. No one else's. And I was ready to face whatever came next.